Okay, so let me just start. So today's session is regarding legal research. So as of you know that this is a very important part, or you can say perspective through which we can actually work upon. And if you even pursue with your academics in research or not, you will have to have a hand over legal research, whether you're anywhere in the legal background, whether it is practice, whether it is academics, whether it is actual research or whatsoever you are pursuing, or it's you're working in some legal firm, you will need to have a firm hand over legal research. So today in today's discussion, I'll primarily be sticking to how what are the methods and what are the procedure and what are the points which we have to keep in mind while we are pursuing, while we are doing some research, or we are going to put forth our work in front of somebody. So my perspective is regarding how do we put forth the dissertations which you come across in your usual academics, or your dissertations, or you can say your thesis papers, or you can say research articles. These are all very relevant parts of the legal research, and this I will tell you how do you have a better hand over them. Okay, so firstly, so what do you understand by legal research? How it is different from normal research? Now, everybody would say that research is just like you read out a few books and you try to interpret, or you can say you can try to sort out some meanings and try to so coincide into a meaning. And how it is how is it different for as perspectives to the legal research? So legal research has a wider ambit. It is a specified area, you can say wider ambit, in regards to it is also dealing with economics, it is also dealing with social welfare, it is also dealing with psychological welfares, right? So there are very many other facets of it as well, right? So legal research is again dealing with legal facts as well as verification of the previous legal facts. So it is a it is having a very wider ambit. So how do we establish relationships between our human behaviors, or you can say human activities? How would you conclude that this is particular act is a crime, or this act is not a crime, and what are all the punishments involved? So legal research touches wider ambits as perspects to the research, just the research, right? And again, it is very important that as we grow, the law needs to grow as well. As the society moves on, there are various numerous, you can say, aspects which are developing as such in the prospects of law as well as a society. So we need to redraft, recheck, or reassign or develop new laws as to suffice the cause of our society, right? So again, the various objects of this is to frame out new concepts, to develop new tools of research, of legal research as well. Beforehand, we did not have these, you can say, legal databases with us. So now we are having so efficient legal databases with us because we are pursuing everything online. And there are through these mediums, we can have a better end or a better hand over the prospects of research, right? Earlier we used to go to check the catalogs to the libraries, and through we used to check out all the cases or the authorities or the various eminent authors of legal resources. So with time we have developed these. Again, he was referring to Manupatra. How do you have a good hand over it? There is SEC online, there is Law Finder, there are many legal databases at present available, which can add, which have we have developed through, which is again a medium or a tool of research tools, right? So again, another object would be to interpret. So interpretation is a very wider thing. So how far legal research is having a better interpretation? It has helped us to interpret better. And again, you as lawman, I can say that, not layman, you're no more layman, you will be lawman in future. So you will have a better authority, a better control over legal authorities or legal resources with you. So how would you impact upon the society? How would you interpret with the new vision? That will again emphasize and come under the purview of legal research. So coming to like how would you pursue with legal research, right? Education, you mean you have some particular land reforms or rehabilitation of some displaced persons in your in and around, and again you're focusing on a particular ambit, right? So that would be an identificatory area. You will identify that area and then you will study laws in regards to that area. For example, again, women laws, you say. You have identified that area, all the laws which are in provisions, in pursuance of women or related to women. You try to identify that area and you to try to conclude it. And that is again how to identify that particular area and then research upon that, right? So another part of methodology which we put forth is impact analysis, right? So what is impact analysis? So for example, we have proposed a new legislation, or you want to check their proper impact. What are the effects upon various areas of society or various classes of societies, and how good that law had been, or what are the bad aspects of that law. So this is another method, that is impact analysis. For example, if you say we had introduction of the Right to Information Act, right? So we do have so many research upon this. How do we assess the RTI effects, and how do the RTIs have impacted on governance? How is that RTI have given a good impact on our governance, right? And what are the various flaws which RTI couldn't compile with? I hope everybody is understanding what I'm trying to say, right? Okay, yeah. Then we have another method that is again projective, or you can say predictive. So what are the anticipations which we have, or like what are the opinions or reactions to, if we try to study, if we want to introduce a new bill. For example, there was a hue and cry regarding GST, right? It was while it was not in power, when it was not in it was not enacted, right? Similarly, there was a huge cry about Lokpal bill, if you remember, Anna Hazare, right? So that is how the people will react, and how that proposed bill would be effective. So everybody was very very anticipated about that it will lead to good laws, it will lead to a good governance. So that is the reason, again it is a good again that is a good model, or you can say method to do legal research, right? If you are trying to check whether the particular bill will be effective or will not be effective, and how it will be effective for the society at large. Got my point, what I'm trying to say? Okay. And then after we have interactive and interpretive. So these are the general things. Like if we have particular law, it could be like how does this impact in our society, how does it impact to our economics, how does that law will affect various other facets of our life, right? For example, if it is again a multidisciplinary research. If one act has passed, for example, if we have this current legislation, that is which we talk about gender neutral bill, if you have come across that how does this bill will be effective in future, right? We will have a interactive study regarding that. How will we it will affect one strata of society, how will affect another strata of society, and how this will be effective for the economics of the country, how this bill will be effective for the social development of this country, right? Are you getting my point, all of you? So again, thereafter, forms of legal research, I'll come to the forms. These were the methods. How would you put forth your research, and what are the points which you can have in mind while pursuing the legal research, right? If you want to pursue a research in a particular topic, you will have to keep all these points in mind. For example, which I have already discussed, which is again interactive, interpretive, predictive, impact analysis, identificatory, right? I hope all of these are clear. right? So I start with again forms of research, or you can say types of research. So primarily we have theoretical research. So purely fundamental research, or you can say the very basic research, in which you will have some documents, some files, or some resources, some good authorities like books, newspapers, documentaries, or you can say anything which is just the basic, which is already written there, and you will try to apply your own mind, and you will try to study that, the theory available with you, and you will try to put it in forth in your own way, right? Thereafter there is applied research. So the main objective of this applied research is to solve the problems which are already prevalent in those legislation, acts, or whatsoever you're going to research upon. So you will try to analyze that, and you will try to apply that legislation, and you will check whether this law has been a better law, or which has not, it's not been a not a better law, and how it is going to put forth with the future. For example, if we will you will study how was the effect of speedy justice. If you all know regarding we have fast track courts, and you will try to study the effect of those fast track courts, right? So that will be an applied research, legal research. Okay, you will check there how far these fast track courts have done their job, or how far they have not able to do their job, and what is the analysis in regards to that uh, impact. Sorry, apply if you apply that legislation. So then we have action research. Again, it is similar to applied or practical part of research. That is, again, it is related to, you can say, to solve the problems. Action means, again, while it is in pursuance. For example, how far the under trials or the prisoners are able to protect their, how far the law is going to protect their rights. How would the law or the or the administration will affect if we have made good laws for as regards to the under trial prisoners. We have tried to protect their rights under the constitution as well. So how far you will check the actual operation, or actual you can say administration, which is done to protect their rights, right? We have written law that we have to protect their rights and everything, and how it is actually done, you will try to study that. Okay, that is action research. What has the administration done in real to protect their rights? Okay, so interdisciplinary, again, if you have you are going to study something in regards to you can say, for example, there was sati, there is honor killing. So you will try to study their socio as well as legal analysis. You will combine the two studies, right? Again, GST, how is it has impacted the, you can say, our economics, as well as how it's had affected our legal background. There is a legal analysis in regards to GST. I hope you're all following. Like, I see some blank faces as well. So far, any questions you want to ask? Like, I should not go too fast, I suppose. Or are you understanding, all of you? You're getting me? Okay. So,
Ma'am,
yeah, tell
ma'am,
me.
ma'am, you talked about this action research. So
Okay.
basically, it is what is written in the constitution, or any law, any
Yeah,
legislature,
yeah,
and how is it executed.
yeah.
So it's the analysis of how is it being executed.
Yeah, that is action. You will try to research upon how it is being executed, or how the administration has actually worked upon that.
Okay, okay, yes,
Okay, it
yeah,
is similar to applied research, but again, the only, like, it is quite similar, but it is again, if you will focus that, again, administrative problems are involved. We have set a law, we have set particular legislations, but what are the practicalities which are involved in that, right? So you will try to study that in action research, right?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Firstly,
Thank you.
it's their application, how far we can apply that, like what are the problem areas that is applied research, and what are the actions thereafter, how does that research is actually benefiting them or that it is not benefiting them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Thank you.
So again, interdisciplinary, we were discussing again the social legal ambits, which we say, for example, honor killing, I was talking about. Then we have Sati Act, Jamaican Dowry Act. Again, Dowry Act is like touching a wider ambit as well at present. It is also, people are now these days talking about men's rights. If you have that Dowry Act is again gender biased. If we talk about uplifting one gender, that is women, we are setting the other gender down, and again we'll have 10 more years to talk about men's rights and then make them gender equal in that sense. As far we have come 10 years far after having these legislations, right? So that is again interdisciplinary research. If you will try to study different ambits of our society, socio legal, psychological, etc. Okay. Okay. Then, if you can say other parts of research. So these were the very basic things. Then we have, you say, academic or doctoral researches. Again, your projects come into that. Your academics come into that. If you have assignments, you have PhD level, you have LLM level, you have another master's level assignments. That is the academic research. So academic research have a very very impact value if you come to legal research, because that way we can have a better hand over that. And then we have institutions also which will fund them, that like ICSSR we have in presence of society, sorry, social logical things which were related to even law, they tried. Then there is law commission who will try to give you some sponsorship in regards to suffice the research. Then we have UGC again, which suffices the PhD research as well, right? Then again, we'll come to the kinds of legal research. Kinds, aspirants, to I'd like to tell you doctrinal and non doctrinal, right? So, doctrinal is again a research which is based on the secondary sources of our literature. Again, secondary sources, they are the secondary means they will be the at second. Primary will be the first hand things, that is the empirical research, right? If you go and check the particular thing yourself, that would be a very very basic, or you can say primary research, right? If you will go to some village to get a, some, you will some have interview with those people and you'll write down things, that will be an empirical research, right? But here we will have secondary research, that is doctrinal research is primarily based on secondary sources of our research, that is again literature, available literature, books, journals, online databases, or like works of various authors, or you can say thesis of various research scholars, newspapers, or articles, or you can say parliamentary proceedings, debates, parliamentary debates come into that, and various others. Again, for these maybe have through this research you may pursue an analytical, a comparative, or a critical analysis of your research, right? Again, analysis is like, if you'll try to have, you have one legislation in your hand, and you try to analyze whether this has impacted the society and how it has impacted, how, what are the positive effects, what are the negative effects. Then you try to then there is comparative study. Comparative study in regards to this is like, you try to compare various legislations of other countries in regards to your country, okay, or some legislations which are prevalent in one particular state of your country, how it is different from other state, right? For example, we do have state legislatures, we do have state laws, so we can always compare them and also compare it with the national law, right? Comparative studies are very very popular these days, because again, how we are developing societies, we need to have a good which you can copy from there, right? The laws which are prevalent in US, UK, we have always followed them, right? So again, comparative study is a very very wider notion of study, and it is under doctrinal research. Then we have critical nature, or combination of all of three, right? So you can always have a critical aspect to, if a particular legislation or a particular act or particular constitution or particular article, so that will be again come under the purview of doctrinal research. So for example, if I have to quote here is, again, if we talk about role of judiciary for protection of our fundamental rights, that this would be again an analytical study. Okay, right? That how the role judiciary has played a good role or a bad role, and you try to analyze the positive notions of that role of judiciary as well as the negative, and what are your suggestions. Okay. Then if we talk about comparative analysis of capital punishment in various countries, so that is again a very, very current and debatable topic at present. Whether India wants to have the capital punishment. Capital punishment is, if you all know, it is death sentence, death of sentence, right? Yeah. So again, a few countries have banned that capital punishment, right? And a few of countries still have this capital punishment in their laws. So that will be again a comparative analysis. Okay. Then if we talk about, if you say public interest litigation, judicial trends in respect of environment protection, right? If you want this ambit of your study, right? PIL is again a very very like emerging area, right? It is still in, you can say, development stage, and we are having multiple PILs, and still people don't know how to like file PILs and how to go about those PILs. So if you want to study the judicial trends, here again, this is again a doctrinal research, that would be again an analytical research. Again, with special reference, you have specified the area of environment protection, that how environment protection, we have got environment protection rights, as well as through judicial precedents we are able to have laws regarding the environment protection. Again, this will be a complete analytical study. I hope everything is clear until now. Any questions so far? So shall I move to the next topic, that is non-doctrinal research? Yes, please, all of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So non-doctrinal again is like empirical, that I told you, that which is gained by experience, experiments, or observations, right? Again, it is a very basic research which we follow to study, even you can say, like effects of laws, effects of human behavior, or their interaction between each other, and again, uh, how the law has actually impacted. This is the only way we can have a wide, like good idea about that. Otherwise, in doctrinal research, we will just study in regards to the impact analysis, or you can say analytical studies, comparative studies. Through this empirical research or non-doctrinal research, we can have first-hand information of everything, and then that study would be the original study. Okay. So for example, if you're conducting a census, that is again a very very important aspect of non-doctrinal study, right? Then we have samplings, we have questionnaires, we have schedules, we have interviews, surveys. Again, there is for example, data collections, right? Even now these days we have online, you can say, surveys being done. If you're not okay with a particular thing, you can always, they will always send you a survey, and you will have to record your responses in as per their services or whatever they are providing you. So again, these are non-doctrinal or empirical types of research. So now I will be proceeding to uh, hypothesis. or you can say, firstly, I'll discuss about the research design, right? So, what is a research design? So, generally, while you are in the this academics, or you can say you are making projects, you are always asked to make a particular research design, right? And how it is different from, you can say, a research problem, or how is it different from a proper, you can say, dissertation or a project. And if somebody is asked you, for example, if you have to pursue a PhD, or have to pursue an LLM, so then you will be asked to give a research design before the before starting with your academic that your research, right? So research design is like a planning, which is a proposed research project to conduct either an empirical test, or to test some particular law, or to check some particular law as to which the research plan or design will be there. Either it could be analysis of some data, or maybe some the nature of the problem is described under the research design. So what it constitutes of, that is again, what is the name of your topic, that is very relevant. Again, title, it has to have a definite title to your research. Okay, then you have to determine the scope. What is actually the scope, or where are you going to stop your research at, and where are the closed area of your research. Scope means ambit, or how far you're going to research upon that particular topic. Are you referring to something particular, or you referring to something broader in the society, or everything under the umbrella? So what is under the umbrella is your scope, right? So again, this is the first two very relevant parts which we will discuss in the research design. In the very starting, you will discuss that. Then there is background knowledge and introduction to the problem. So what all you know about that you will have in your hand, and you will try to introduce that problem, or introduce that area of research through that problem which you already have the basic knowledge regarding stat, right? Then whether you are going to pursue again non-doctrinal study or a doctrinal study, right? Nature of study, right? Then you will have to jot it down, that whether you're going to do empirical research. If you're going to do an empirical research, be clear that what method you are going to use there, whether you are going to use interviews, whether you are going to use some surveys methodology, or you are going to use some schedule methodology, or what aspects you are going to cover through that empirical research. Even if you are doing a doctoral research, what method are you going to use in that, whether it is analytical, whether it is comprising of all of them, comparative, analytic, or critical. Okay, so again, then you have to discuss about the hypothesis. So hypothesis is again a statement which you have to put forth before doing your research. Or generally what academicians do it is write their hypothesis when they are done with their research. So either way you can do it, but at the very first stage of it, you will have to decide what will be your hypothesis. So I will discuss hypothesis in detail in the next part. But here I would like to tell you that hypothesis is a basic statement, or the basic thing which you have to prove in your research. Either you have to prove it wrong, or you have to prove it right. So it is up to you. You will have to frame that hypothesis in a particular statement in regards to how do you are going to prove it right, or you're going to prove it wrong. Okay. For example, if I quote here is, if you are, for example, you are discussing, again, I'll like to tell you about that Dowry Act. If I say, how far Dowry Act has been a beneficial legislation for women, or how far it is a bad legislation for the other strata of society, that is men or transgenders, where there is no mentioning of transgenders in that act. Okay. So if you want to quote a hypothesis for the statement, right? If you will say gender bias legislation, it is a gender bias legislation. Dowry Act is a gender biased legislation, right? This is your statement, this is your hypothesis. Okay, you will prove it right in that way. For example, if you will have all the examples, or your research will be in that ambit, that this is a bad legislation, it is a gender biased legislation. You will quote various judgments which say that this is infringing rights of men in every way. This is being a bad legislation because this through this, women are misusing their power to get their husbands as well as in-laws arrested, right? The judgments you will provide, that way you will be able to prove that this is what you proposed was true in your sense, right? So if you will reframe it, it is a beneficial legislation for women. Dowry Act is a beneficial legislation for women, right? Then you will support your reason by giving your reasons how this legislation have reduced the number of deaths, reduced the number of dowry deaths, and how far the law has been effective to protect the rights of women. I hope you are understanding. Then, in research, coming back to the research design, this was the hypothesis. Okay, then you will have to discuss, you will have to uh, provide for the data collection. That is, again, if you are having a, even if you are doing a doctrinal or non-doctrinal research, both of them like ask for time as well as paucity of time. If you have 2 months only, or you have 4 years with you, it depends, right? So either way you are going to have your work done. So if you have 2 months, you will have to stick to a very very specific area, or maybe you cannot even suffice with empirical research, right? So data collection is of very prime importance. How would you collect your data? Do you have a legal database, you have libraries, or if you want to go for an empirical research, do you have such sufficient funds to put forth your legal research in that particular? If you want to go to some factories and analyze the labor there, and you want to interview them or write how far a particular factories, for example, legislation is being effective to their ends, right? Am I clear, right? So thereafter, the research design ends again with an analysis as well as interpretation of whatever data you have collected, right? Whatever, even if you have reviewed the literature in doctrinal research, what are your conclusions? You will have to write in a few words. So research design is at the max of 2000 to 5000 words, not more than that. If you are submitting a research design, you have to very restrictive towards the number of words, so that it should not look like you have just given them a bulky thing, and you have to decide. Because upon your research design, the academicians or your professors will be able to decide whether this research is actually having some value. So it should be very crisp and very interesting to read. Okay. And again, what should be of prime importance in research design is, again, objectivity. That this is what I discussed. It should be very crisp and very very put forth very in a very precise manner. And again, how far it is reliable. Again, how is it valid, is it relevant in current situation, right? Or how far the research has been already done. So you should always try to do or write something which is not previously done, right? When there is already so much of research upon some particular topic, there is no point that you will add to something, until and unless you have something to interpret upon the previously done works. You will have your research will not hold a good validity. Yet again, for example, I am working upon some law, right? I put forth my all the efforts and everything, and when I was working upon that, it was a bill. But with that, it became a law because I was writing everything that it should become a law. While it was a bill, it is already become a law. So the whole research or whole thing of my efforts go zero there. I will either have to change my research altogether to make it more valid in the current scenario, right? For example, if I was doing some research in regards to some, for example, GST, and GST law was made in a day or so, and I have put all my efforts that GST should be a good law, how it is good, how is it bad, and everything, and it comes out, it is now an act. Okay, so thereafter I can have to change my research and make it more relevant in current scenario. Okay, then I will have to add, subtract things from my research. So to avoid that, the validity of that research design is of prime importance. Okay. So thereafter, again, we'll have the report writings. That is again very important. Report writing is just like what you write in the complete dissertation writing or the complete thesis writing or some article writing in total. That is report writing. So now I'll discuss the research problem with you. What is the research problem? So research design is the wider ambit. Research problem is a very shorter ambit. Like, what is a research problem? So research problem is like a situation, circumstances, or you can say something which needs a clarity, or something which needs a solution, or which needs to be described, explained, or predicted, or which is not clear or which is still ambiguous. So, how, as a legal researcher, you will try to interpret, to decide, to observe, and explain, and then thereafter prove that what was that particular legislation about, or what a problem was about. Okay. So, for example, generally, what are the gaps in the legislations which we have? That is a research problem for our legal research. For example, um, if you say, okay, while we were discussing GST law is a bulky law, right? You have this big act, this big legislation, and it is having a lot of loopholes in between, a lot of gaps in between. So you will try to identify those gaps and make it into a research problem, and thereafter do your legal research to fill in that gaps. Clear? Okay, I have question. Difference between a research problem and research hypothesis. Okay, research problem and research hypothesis. Research problem is what I am telling you is like a research gap which you have to fill in, or a research area which is a problem or a circumstance or a situation which needs to be described, observed, explained, or even predicted in any other sense. Okay. Whereas hypothesis is like a statement in your thesis which you will have to prove either right or wrong. Research problems may be many in the legal research. There not be just one problem in your legal research. Or you can say there will be many research questions which have led to which have led to the research problems which have led to many research questions which you will be answering in your particular report, or report while you're writing your data or writing your thesis or articles. That would be deciding factors. Whereas hypothesis is basic statement on which the whole of your thesis or the whole of your work is based upon. Either it is yes, or it is a no, or it is a zero, right? Hypothesis. But research problem is a wider notion to it. You can have various research questions arising through that research problem, which you will be describing in that issue in the your report writing, right? So you will have to check that gap, or you can say, for example, you are going to study about you can say uh, that's what I was saying, again, this women centric legislations. So what are the loopholes in these legislations? That these legislations do not suffice with a gender neutrality, right? We talk about gender neutral laws these days, right? That all genders, including transgenders, are equal to are equal in the society. So why do we need to have women-centric legislations exclusively for women? And why and how these legislations are putting a threat to men in the society or families to the society, right? So this is a gap area, or there is a loophole in that. Again, if we say the in for example, if I talk about domestic violence act, domestic violence act talks about that there is no, we cannot, the men cannot file domestic violence. They cannot go, or the husbands or the spouses or they can the male members of this house cannot go and file a domestic violence case. They may be the aggrieved party too, right? So that is a gap area, that is your research problem, right? And you will frame out questions through that. That for example, if you try to say this legislation is lacking, for example, this domestic violence act needs to be interpreted in a wider sense, right? The meaning within the aggrieved party should be inclusive of men as well as transgenders. If we talk about live in relations at present, even transgenders are now allowed, or you can say LGBTQ community is being accepted. And again, if they have some issues like domestic violence in their living spousing, if they are living together, so how will they file or acknowledge their issues of domestic violence? So aggrieved, there is no meaning. There is, we have just aggrieved woman described in that particular act, in a particular, in that particular act in a section, and otherwise no other party can file the case. So this is their research problem. But your hypothesis would be how far domestic violence is a beneficial legislation, right? How, or you can say whether, for example, you will have to state your question in that formation. That hypothesis should be a statement that, for example, if I say domestic violence is gender biased, this would be a statement, that would be a hypothesis to my work, right? Whereas my research problems would be many. That how the whether the meaning of aggrieved party described in domestic violence is valid or it should be changed, right? You can frame many other questions about how domestic violence, whether the meaning of domestic violence is ambiguous. Again, shared household, how far the meaning, what is there is no ambiguity, there is big ambiguity in the meaning of shared household and the domestic violence act. So research problems lead to research questions. So questions should be very simple and very direct, and should invite a very basic answer to whatever data you are going to study or you're going to put forth in your report writing, right? So because towards the end, while you're writing a conclusion part, you will have to address to all the research problems, or you can say research questions arising to that problem. You will have to answer them. Okay, that how far your research was able to compile and put forth the, or acknowledge or address those research questions through that research which arose through that research problem. Okay, so how would you decide research problems? For example, it may be of some social issues like I discussed of this domestic violence act. It may be of something of your personal interest as well. If it is not sufficing your own cause, you can always have a research, you can decide that problem and try to research upon that. Again, after reviewing the literature, you can come across that particular authorities or particular books, even if they are talking about that particular area of law, they are not filling up the whole gap, and they are not having a particular ambit which is being left, which you are working upon. For example, while we have reviews, book reviews, like while you do the book reviews or literature reviews, you read the book, right? If you are not okay, for example, you have the title of the book says that this will cover all the areas which is of your interest. But after reading the book, you come to a conclusion that this book did not touch a particular area only, which was you were looking for in particular, right? So you will have to review that book accordingly. You can have a critical aspect, you can have critical review to it, that this is the area which this particular book lacked, and this is how I'm going to add to the research or add to the legal fraternity through my research. Okay, then we have uh, personal experiences, again the same thing, and academic assignments. So then we have identification of the problem. Same thing, you have to decide general areas of your interest, and you have to then conclude, or you can say come low to the particular area which you want to research, or which has a gap according to you, which you need to fulfill upon, right? For example, if we talk about transgender laws, we do have transgender bills. We have the act as well, but does it actually what are the gap areas in that particular act or legislation, and how whether that act is actually doing their job, or whether this act is actually fulfilling. For example, if I quote here, we have the act of transgender that we should provide one seat to transgender society in a particular university, right? They have their seats reserved for the transgenders, right? So what are the difficulties thereafter reservation of that seat would come out? Whether the society will accept that one person in the class, right? Which hostel you are going to put that person in, right? Whether you are going to send it to a girls hostel, or you're going to send it to the boys hostel, right? Or you want to have a specialized exclusive hostel for transgenders. But then again a problem arises that again they will say they are being excluded from the society, right? They are giving a special you can say special hostel we have made for them. Similar problems could arise making of washrooms for them, right? Right, are you getting me what I'm saying? So these are the gap areas, or you can say research problems. Okay, if we are studying this transgender bill or act, earlier it was a bill, now it's a act. So you can highlight these things and okay, yeah, understood, right, all of you? So these are the gap, you have to fill in those gaps, and how your ideas, maybe for example how do you actually implement them, that is research, that is your input to the legal fraternity, that would be research. So again, factors which are relevant here is time and funds, right? That is again very prime importance, how you're going to suffice with this research. So coming to the topic of hypothesis, right? So what is a hypothesis? As I stated, it is like a basic statement which you have to either prove right or you have to prove it wrong. So this is again of prime importance because you can say the whole research depends upon that particular statement, right? You may have one or two hypotheses, but I don't think so more than three you can have in your whole research if you are going to have a thesis research for your PhD level. Or if you are doing at a very junior level, it is just one line hypothesis which the whole research is based upon. Okay, either you have to prove that state, it is again in the form of statement. Whatever research the data you have collected, or your problem you have suggested that you are going to work upon, you will have to decide one basic statement towards the end, whether you are going to prove that statement right or whether you're going to prove that statement wrong. So clear all of you?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, ma'am. So the hypothesis is just one part. Like either it has to be proved or disproved. Can't
Yeah,
it be like a part of it is proved and the part of is it it is disproved.
Yeah, it can be either. Yeah, you are saying it right. This is what I'm trying to say. But it has to be in a format of a statement. It should
Okay, yes.
not be in a form of question, right? It should be in a one line statement. Maybe a part of it you have to prove right, or a part of it you have to prove wrong. Or maybe in a particular, you can make three hypotheses at the base. That's what I'm saying. You're saying
Okay,
a
yeah,
part of
yeah,
it
yeah.
could be right, could be wrong. Yeah. So can you give me an example? How would you frame your hypothesis for any? You can just quote one example of your research and just frame out a hypothesis from the same.
If we look at the law of bail in our country,
Okay.
so we can say that it is uh, actually there's a provision that provides that a person has to prove that he's indigent or poor. He has to be
Mm-hmm.
he has to
Meet and
be yeah,
versus.
in jail for around 15 days or a week, something like that. So we
Mm-hmm.
can say that it is excluding, the law of bail is excluding the poor strata of our society.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be a hypothesis, I think.
Yeah. So how bail is ineffective in providing economically deprived people,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah.
can make a basic statement in regards to that. Yeah, you're right. Anybody else would like to say something? How would you form a hypothesis? Yeah,
Ma'am, I have a question
yeah.
that that can we have a hypothesis that is neither means you said that it should be something like proving or disproving something. So
Okay.
can it be neutral?
Neutral in presence to how? How would you prove your research?
Um, like if we have some topic like this law should come into force for this particular thing, then how will the hypothesis should be created?
A particular thing, as in, like you're saying
Um,
that there is some problem area and
yeah,
you need a law upon that. Okay.
yes.
You will identify that hypothesis like there is a problem in the society and we need the law in regards to, and you will have to suggest that law,
Hmm.
right?
In the hypothesis only.
Yeah.
Okay. And ma'am, is it similar to abstract?
No, no. Abstract is just like the research design. This is what I've talked about before. Like while you write your research design, you identify your problem, you identify various related aspects to it, and what you're going to write in your report. So abstracts are like a research design in a very concise format because it is just for the article writings, or you can say previously done work. Again, I told you it should not be more than 2000 words at the max, but if you're writing an article, it should be not like up to 500 words as a suffice for that. Clear? So, any questions so far?
Ma'am, would you suggest us some website or some source where can we have a look of these papers?
I will send you a few papers which you can read regarding legal research. Even sir have them, and sir can mail you all. Okay. Yeah, I
Okay.
have a question. Economic ratio of lower caste to upper caste is not correlated with crime rate against the former. Yes, it is a very good example of your hypothesis statement. So you are stating that economic ratio which you have quoted, ratio of lower caste to upper caste is not correlated with crime against the former. Okay, then you have to prove this statement whether economic like gap or economic ratio between lower and upper class is okay, whether our legislations, or you can say the crime rate, is towards inclined towards lower caste, whether lower caste are committing more crimes or the upper caste is committing lesser crimes or more crimes, and then you can end in the end decide whether this hypothesis was true or it is not true. So the final stage again is regarding the report writing. So while you're writing your report, you have to keep a few things in mind, that you have to be very elaborate while writing. Again, The thesis comes in parts. While you're writing your dissertation, your thesis, or even articles, you have to follow up a format for that. You have to fix some chapterization. You have to do the chapterization of the your work. Firstly, you will start with the literature review. Okay, you will enlist all the documents which you have listed, or you have read, or you have gone through while doing the research. Whether it's doctrinal or non-doctrinal, you will have to go by the literature, right? So all the documents, you will how to write the literature review. It's like you have the book in your hand or any authority in your hand. You try to read it, and then you try to analyze that book. Who wrote that book? What was that in that particular book? And what are the areas which were left out of author, which author left out on himself? And how your research would add to that gap in that particular authority. May be any article, it may be any book, it may be any journals you have gone through while writing your thesis. Okay, or maybe periodicals, magazines, or whatsoever. So that is how you jot down your literature review. And again, ratio of literature review should be like, if you are doing a very high level research, for example your thesis research or like PhD research level, then at least if you are going about 500 pages of your work, okay, then 80 to 90 books should be there, journals, articles should be up to 200. Okay, as in comparison to your dissertations, while you have limited time and limited funds with you, it could be up to 30 or 40. Okay, the again literature review gives a very good impact while you are writing your reports. Even if you are writing an article, make sure you give a good acknowledgement, or you can say good footnoting, while citing the resources you have tried to incorporate through that work. Okay, so again, if you're all aware about writing, how do you cite footnotes? Again, that is very important. You have to stick to the format which is already provided. Okay, whatever format your college follows, or you follow the blue book style, or you follow some citation styles that are very very pertinent while writing your reports. Okay, then we have after literature review, again there is hypothesis, research problems, and then we have you can say chapterizations. Again, you have to be very particular what are you going to cover in that particular research. You have to set the headings in that format only. Then lastly we come to the conclusions and suggestions. Okay, so conclusion suggestions should be your own input to the thesis or research, whatever you are conducting. Either you are writing an article, you should always conclude one paragraph of what are your conclusions, or what the suggestions you are going to tell, which will meet the ends of your research. Okay, I hope this you are getting me, all of you. So Pankaj has written his statement. The death penalty deters violent crime and makes society a safer place. Yes, of course, this is a very good example of hypothesis, whether there should be death penalty or not. So this is like death penalty deters violent crimes and makes society a safer place. He will have to justify this hypothesis in his research work by citing all the good judgments which have actually helped the society. uh, After having the death penalty in the society, they are able to suffice the cause of providing peace and security to the society. Okay, and you can quote it otherwise also if you want to disapprove this part, that again if your research is regarding this, okay, death penalty has not even provided a safer environment at all, it has not deterred the crime at all, then you will have you can always quote various judgments and various citations which say that even if we are having death penalty since such a long period, but still we are unable to achieve that. We are not able to deter the crime, which is still again we are committing, the people are committing crimes at such a high level. They are committing such grave crimes even after having the provision for death penalty. So everyone is okay. Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah, tell me.
Ma'am, is there any difference? Is there any difference between bibliography and select bibliography?
Again, select bibliography and bibliography is not much different. Select bibliography could be like if you are particularly researching upon some authority, that would be select bibliography. And otherwise, bibliography is like an extended version of what all authorities or all books you have tried to cover in. Right?
Okay,
Select
ma'am.
bibliography is like if something, if you are stick to some particular authority which is of prime importance in your thesis or your research work. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else?
Ma'am, you told about comparative research writing.
Yeah. Yes.
So, like in India, we know that few of the sources what we should go through to have the data, to have the information regarding all the laws. But when it comes to other countries, there's some problem. Then, what sources should we look through to get the
You
information?
always go through the authorities of their books, right? If you are conducting like you can download their you can always download various legislation. They are readily available on the web, I suppose. There is no much issue. Even if you have subjects at a like LLM level, we have comparative constitutions in which we do study various constitution of other countries, right? Even we can you can research the for example, if you are studying some gender laws, right? You are going to have an analysis of the gender laws of various countries, right? For example, you are sticking to Australia, UK, and USA. You go to their websites, you try to track their authorities, the prime authorities, the books which we are referred to, and you can always find out on web that how you can read their bare acts, because bare acts are readily available for every country. Legislations, like, they are readily available on the web, and then you can study their particular sections and try to compare it with your own country's legislations, their particular sections, and then you can draw a corollary between the two, and you can thereafter decide which law is better, which country has a better law, and which country doesn't have a good law, and what are your suggestions that you can suffice to the cause of the research which you are providing for. What are your suggestions for this? And this is again a good methodology to improve upon the previously done legislations. Okay.
Thank
Anything
you, ma'am.
else? You're welcome.
Thank you.